Hi, in this video I'm going to be going over everything I did to transform my shed from looking like this to being a fully functional art studio. This has been a really fun project and I'm really excited to share everything that went into it, and this video is going to kind of just be a modge of different videos that I took during the process, so stick with me. It might not be, I don't know, the best video ever, but I'm just really happy with the art studio and I'm just excited to share it.
So this was the shed before I did anything to it. It really is a perfect space for a studio. It's about 12 by 8 feet and it's got a barn shape to it. So one of the first things I did to the shed was screw in more studs. Because of the shape of the shed, it needed more studs for the drywall to screw into. I spent a whole Saturday just measuring and cutting 2x4s to fit into all these different spaces where the drywall might need to be screwed in. I also did some of the electrical after putting in all the studs. We initially thought there was a power to the studio because there were outlets, but those outlets didn't actually connect to anything. The wires that were coming out of them were just cut. So I got to learn a lot about electrical. I was able to run a cord from the house to the shed and then connect that to the 3 outlets inside the shed. I then worked on insulating the walls, which definitely wasn't my favorite part of this whole process. It was nice though. A lot of the spaces on the side walls where insulation needed to go were all the same size, so I was able to measure and cut all the insulation, then put it into the walls. I got into a pretty good system and was able to get it done decently fast. After all the insulation went in, I took plastic and stapled it all over the walls and ceiling just as a last barrier to keep the cold air out. After this, I also did insulation on the floors and laid thin plywood over that. The next thing I did was drywall, which was my least favorite part. Drywall was just difficult because it was so heavy and hard to cut. All the seams where a piece of drywall meets another piece of drywall looked so bad, and holding up that drywall for the ceiling was definitely a task. I didn't really take any videos of me doing the drywall because I was pretty frustrated the whole time and the drywall just looked so bad. After the drywall, I had to do another Home Depot run, and this is really the only video I have of me talking about the project during the project, so here's that.
Okay, good morning. I'm doing a little progress update on the studio. I'm almost done with the drywall. The ceilings are going up on that today. And then I am doing floors and trim and painting and mudding. And I just got a bunch of wood for the trim and all that fun stuff. So that's what I have going on today with the studio.
Because I didn't do a great job with the drywall, I decided to save some time and just put 1x2 pieces of wood all over the drywall seams. I think it ended up looking pretty cool in there. I did have to mud a few seams here and there, but it wasn't too bad. And I wasn't too concerned with making the walls look super smooth. It's an art studio, it doesn't have to be perfect. I then had the tedious task of painting the walls and trim. I just decided to do all white because it really brightens up the space. I did have fun doing the painting. The shed just really started to transform into a studio. It was very exciting to put up the lights in the studio. I decided on 2 LED daylight lights with pull chains going across the top of the shed. I had put an outlet in the middle of the ceiling so that I could plug both of the lights into it. Seeing light for the first time in the studio was super cool. It just felt like I was getting closer and closer to being finished. And this is a progress shot after all the painting and mudding was finished. The next thing I worked on was the floor. I decided to go with a dark brown stain because I thought it would be a good contrast to all the white. Staining this floor was a little bit of a pain. I just used a towel and rubbed the stain into the plywood just like the can said to. And in the end, I don't think the stain looks super consistent. I feel like there's parts of the floor that are darker and others that are lighter. But I'm not too worried about it. That floor is going to be a mess once I actually start using the studio. I also did 2 coats of top coat over the stain. I learned a lot doing these windows. Cutting the shed with a jigsaw was difficult, especially because I also had to cut into the framing of the doors on the outside. The window holes definitely didn't look perfect, but they worked. Then I cut some glass for the windows, which honestly went better than I expected. I took those same pieces of wood that I used for the trim and basically sandwiched the glass to make the window. Then I caulked all the edges to make sure no air could get in. I'm really proud of how these windows turned out. They were definitely something I was worried about doing myself. The last thing I did for the studio was make a few shelves and countertops. I did the shelves by taking 1x6 and 1x8 pieces of wood and then staining them with the same stain as the floor. The countertops were just some old plywood that I sanded down and then stained them using that same stain. I also did 2 layers of top coat on the countertops to seal everything in.
Couldn't have done this studio without the help of my grandpa and my dad. Thank you so much for the guidance and the tools. This has been such a fun project and I'm sad it's over, but I'm excited to actually paint and get back to creating and having an amazing space to do all of that. And yeah, and make videos and stuff.